Hey, I'm Mike, and in this video, I'm going to rank all the WoW box art covers from worst to best. As always, this is an objective list, so if you disagree, then you're banned. So once again, we're going to start off with the worst one, which I think is one that isn't a very commonly seen, or some people don't even know that this box art existed. It's very basic, and it is the original vanilla orc box art. I just really don't like the horde, and I dislike both characters on the box. I don't really like the red or orange in the background or on the logo, and it just feels very old and not something I'd look twice at if I walked past it in a store. From there, we can only get better, and we move on to Mists of Pandaria. I like the red background for the box with the tealish looking background for the WoW logo. I like that the monk is in this battle stance and looks like he's either about to pounce into battle or that he just did like a superhero pose after getting out of battle because of the leaves that are flying around him. I like the background behind him as well and the little sun flare over his hat, but just overall it doesn't really stand out that much. It's just kind of okay, especially compared to the rest of the boxes in this list. It's just kind of whatever, it's not that great. But one expansion that does it a little bit better is Battle for Azeroth. It's a nice callback to orcs versus humans, but I think overall it's pretty cheesy with the two races in the foreground just grimacing at one another. I really like that there's a battle raging on behind them into the sunset with the dark clouds, but it just looks a little bit too uniform and split down the middle for me. I would have liked to have seen it be a little bit more chaotic. I think that would have looked cooler and more hectic. The WoW logo from this era also looks fantastic. I really like the dark blues and the silvers. But speaking of blues and silvers, from there, we're going to move on to the next expansion, which is Dragonflight. There's no standard edition for this one, just a collector's edition. The promotional art that was used for this, I think that if that was used instead, if that actually had been released, that would have probably made my top 5 because I think it's fantastic, but unfortunately that is just a promotional picture. So for the collector's edition, I like the colors and I think the silver dragon things along it are okay, but overall it's just kind of boring. I think this box art is more indicative of how much I dislike the box arts that came before it, because overall this one is not that great and the other ones were worse. But finally from there, we're going to start getting into expansions where it starts to get a little bit better, beginning with the Warlords of Draenor. It is kind of cool, but it also just kind of looks like the Liver King holding Gorehowl. There's not a whole lot going on. It's kind of similar to Mists of Pandaria in that vein, but I think it just looks a bit cooler because it's not a panda and the orc is just more menacing and just cooler looking, and just I like the colors a lot more. It looks pretty metal, but just overall a little lackluster. What is not as lackluster as WoD though is the next box art, which is the classic vanilla cover. Honestly, this cover gets like half points just for the nostalgia of it. I love the Night Elf on the cover with what looks like Moonglade behind them. I like the menacing dwarf in the foreground. It looks pretty cool, but I think it blends in a bit too much with the rest of the box. Just the colors all kind of blend in together. I definitely think this is eye-catching with the yellow and brown border, and then this bold blue in the middle with the Night Elf. The next one I actually wanted to rate a bit higher just because of nostalgia again, but I have to be fair, and this one is for the Burning Crusade. I still have this box and a few others, and I just love the textured art on the front. It's like bumpy and stuff. But in fairness, this one is pretty much just the vanilla cover, but in green. I like it more than vanilla, obviously, because I think the Blood Elf looks cool and I love Draenei, but it is pretty much the same cover. I also assume that that's Shadowmoon Valley in the background, which was a great choice as well. One thing I am curious about though is how different this cover would have looked if the Draenei and Blood Elf had swapped places, and maybe Zangarmarsh would have been the background with a bunch of purple or like dark blue colors. I think I'd still prefer this one, but I'd just be curious to see what that swap would look like. After that, we have another collector's edition box art. There is no standard edition for this, and that is the most recent expansion at the time of this recording. It is the War Within. I love the way that it looks like a vault or a tome. I love the color of the logo in the middle and how the globe is starting to crack, and those cracks extend out to the box also. I think the World Soul trilogy has a chance to make some very cool box art that when put side by side by side could look really, really cool. So I'm excited to see in, I think it's like 6 years probably, what the trilogy will look like in terms of box art. After that, we're going to stay on the trend of not having a standard edition and only going off of the collector's edition, because the next best expansion is Shadowlands. It's nothing really extravagant, but it looks so cool. It looks like if you smashed a sapphire, only to find out it had a Wolfenite center that also shattered to pieces. I can't say it really fits the theme of Shadowlands, but I think it looks sick. You also can't tell from the picture, but if you go check out a video or if you have it in your hands, it has like a holographic look as well, and the colors on the box just look so much better in person. It's very, very, very well done and very deserving, I think, of one of the top spots here. But it didn't crack the top 3, and that's where we are right now. The third best expansion in terms of box art is Legion. It's got that nostalgic Burning Crusade feel with one of the greatest characters in all of Warcraft, Illidan, mother effing Stormrage, looking at you like you're his next victim. The use of light, or lack thereof, on this cover is awesome as well. Firstly, Illidan is kept somewhat in the dark, except for the parts of him that are illuminated in green. And every time I see this, I kind of remember the Darth Vader scene from Rogue One, but instead of the red saber, it's just Illidan's green. Then on the logo, the green light illuminates the blocks of characters that spell out World of Warcraft. I think the only thing that is lacking on this is the illumination of the Warglaive. I think that deserves a little bit better and to be highlighted a little bit more. It's menacing, it's badass, and it's eye-catching. It's amazing. But that leaves us with only 2 expansions. And if you've been keeping track, you know exactly which ones they are. Number 2, the second best expansion, based off box art alone, is Cataclysm. Fire, Brimstone, and Deathwing himself, it's amazing. The crack in the globe, a perfect font for Cataclysm, the broken rune circle, and then the only source of light being the destruction that Deathwing caused are what make this cover so perfect. It's like a cooler Godzilla poster. It's intimidating and it's attention grabbing. Like, I see this and I know that this fire-breathing dragon is what caused the Cataclysm, but how? Why? To what extent? Do I get to fight him? And how am I going to kill a cataclysm-causing dragon? Not to mention the fact that Deathwing himself just looks like an absolute beast in this. This was his peak, and if he had a profile picture, this would still be it 10 years later. But from there, that leaves only one expansion. Wrath of the Lich King. Everything about this cover is perfect. The predominantly white background is buffed so much by the use of gray and blue in the center. The use of ice throughout the many portions of this, like the rune circle or Frostmourne, just remind me of dripping blood. Then of course Arthas himself wielding Frostmourne, like could you be any cooler, no pun intended? I think it's really badass how in the Helm of Domination the only thing that's illuminated is just his evil glare as he's holding tightly to this sword that carries the souls of the dead. The same dead that make up his army, for which his armor gladly represents through numerous depictions of death. Every time I see this cover, I just want to either go run Icecrown Citadel or finally start reading WoW lore so I can learn more about Arthas' full story. And that's what art is all about, making you want to read. So with that, Wrath gets the distinction of having the best box art, which sits nicely beside its title as arguably the best expansion ever. I'd make a ruling forever joke, but I just can't really figure out the words. So that's it. Those are all the eras of World of Warcraft ranked by their box art. If you like this video, you might also like a video I put out a little bit ago talking about the best flying and ground mounts from every expansion. That's linked in the description as well as an annotation above. If you like this video or any of my others and you have not yet subscribed, I'd really appreciate it if you would at least consider it. I'm trying to get to 100k and every little bit helps. Whether you do or you don't, whether you are or you are not, I still love you. I still appreciate you watching. Let me know your thoughts down below whether you would agree or disagree and what your ranking would be and why. Love you lots. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.